listening to Talk the Line, a podcast from the line of Best Fit. I'm Jen Long, a failed radio presenter who's now turned to podcasting, and every week I chat to a notable artist or musician or something similar about their deepest passions, interests and obsessions, the kind of thing they usually talk about once you've turned the recorder off. You can follow us on Twitter at Talk the Line and me at Jen Long, and if you like this podcast, please subscribe. This year, singer-songwriter Nadine Shah releases her third record, Holiday Destination. It's an album that deals with the refugee crisis as well as issues of identity and nationalism. As a second-generation immigrant, Nadine was born in the northeast of England to an English mother and a Pakistani father in the mid-1980s. Inspired by Nina Simone's vocal style, she moved to London in her late teens to pursue dreams of becoming a jazz singer and jammed with people like Mose Allison. Nadine released her debut album in 2013. Love, You're Dumb and Mad was a record prompted by two friends who took their own lives and introduced a theme important to her music, the taboo around mental health. She's volunteered with the Samaritans and been an activist through her support of Calm, the campaign against living miserably. The Guardian called her a theatrical pop goth, but she describes herself as a drama queen who exaggerates a lot. And mental health is the subject that Nadine has chosen for this Talk the Line. I feel like we actually should start by saying that we've recorded this podcast before.
Yeah, but with the last podcast, the thing was, so when you sent me the recording of our conversation that we had, and obviously we're doing a podcast on mental health, and I think my issue with it was that I was way too jovial with the whole thing. And I think you even said at the end of it, okay, a lot of that was quite playful, but it's a serious subject and you can contact this and this and this should you be suffering with this illness and need to seek help. But one of the reasons it was so jovial at the time was because actually I was in a really bad place.
Right.
I might have covered it quite well. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but I've probably put on a stone in weight since the last time we met and recorded that podcast.
I hadn't noticed, no.
I was in a really bad place, like terrible.
I thought you were just hungover.
No, well, most days. Most days I'm hungover. But I was having a really bad time. It was really difficult because there was a point where it was like I was going to doctors and I'd just come out of a long-term relationship and a lot of it was to do with my illness, which still has no name, but it's a mental illness which has had 10 names or 12 names, whatever. And at that point I was drinking really heavily and going out every night by myself, waking up on a bus somewhere at the end of the line. And God knows how I'd get home each night. My flatmates were so worried about me. It was really bad.
It's so strange though that we had like an hour-long conversation about mental health and about the things you can do to help people when they're suffering and just back and forth about our past experiences, and the whole time I didn't even pick up that you were having a bad time.
I think that's but that's one of the problems, I think, especially myself and other people that I know that suffer with certain mental health illnesses, is that I'm a very good liar. I'm really good at covering it up, because I think a lot of us feel like we have to hide it and cover it up because it's not socially acceptable. We don't want to be branded crazy. I mean, at the time, I've been like an advocate and an ambassador of sorts for mental health, speaking at conferences in schools and colleges, music conferences as well, writing articles about mental health. And then to have to come out and say, actually, I'm really ill. I felt like a bit like a hypocrite.
Yeah.
In that I can't really.
Way.
Yeah.
Like you're supposed to have it down. You're supposed to be the like poster girl.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Yeah, which is strange, right? And then I think that the industry that I was existing in, it really amplified a lot of the problems that I had that were maybe kind of under the surface, but a lot of them, it's not the healthiest of industries to be in, the music industry.
No.
And there's been, I mean, I know last time I was talking about this article that William Doyle wrote, and he's from East India Youth. And he wrote this great article about music and mental health. But then, you know, since this podcast that we recorded before, which is like 8 months ago or something.
No, it was
January.
It was like January. Oh my God, no.
How long goes that?
Oh my God, it's August.
August, so how many months in it? 8?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Nearly.
How Oh, wow. I can't believe you've been doing this podcast that long.
It's doing all right. You've had Martine McCutcheon. So you're doing something right.
So nice.
I'm really jealous that you've met her because I love her. I mean, I could do a podcast just on her if you'd like to start now. I could talk about her in Love Actually.
Before you were suggesting, should we just scrap that whole subject and we'll just do Cilla Black?
Cilla Black or Martine McCutcheon, both. the legends of today. Oh, well, poor Cilla of yesterday. Oh, I love her.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, so obviously William Dole was talking about mental health and music. But I mean, in the past 8 months, I mean, is it 2 artists which have committed suicide, and was it from Soundgarden? And also we've got to stop saying commit. We also have to stop saying commit suicide because it's not a crime.
Yeah,
that's why we used to call
it. Took their own lives.
Yeah, took their own lives. And I still, because it was such a colloquial term, people would use that term. I still sometimes say, oh, you know, so and so commit suicide. That means that they committed a crime. It's not a crime.
No, yeah,
I
never even thought about that.
It's weird, isn't it?
Because it's just so embedded in your language. So it's it's like just something that the phrase just they come together, don't they?
Or like saying, I had a crazy moment, or I was crazy ain't a good word either. And like if I'm called crazy, I'm gonna.
My house very clean. I'm a bit OCD like that. No, that's not what it is.
We cannot say that on the song.
So I also said on the last podcast that when you do a conversation like this, I feel like I could put my foot in it at any moment. Like I feel like it's still, which is strange because so many people are talking about it now, and it's compared to 10 years ago. Mental health is so much further into the conversation, into political conversation, into public conversation, that it really should be something we can talk about freely, but it still feels like at any moment I might say the wrong word, and this is going out on the internet, and the internet is a place that is not known for its kindness and patience.
Not at all.
No, and so I'm just going to apologise in advance if anything that I do say is taken
I'm with you on that as well.
Unkindly.
I also apologise.
It's just hard to have a frank conversation when you're just trying to check yourself the whole time.
Yeah. Every time, I'm a bit more cautious when I go on Twitter and social media, and I can't be drunk when I go on, because whatever I say is kind of concrete and it's there. Yeah. And it will exist, and it's a moment of madness. Again, a moment of madness. Can I say a moment of madness? But Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah.
Have you been following the recent?
I saw today, but I didn't delve.
I watched the video of Sinead, and it was such a difficult, harrowing thing to watch. Here's an artist who, she's one of my heroes. I've loved her for a very long time, and I've always looked at her as a very strong. A strong female.
Yeah.
And but you know what? That doesn't mean that she can't be vulnerable. But this video, it highlighted, I think, not only like mental health issues, but also the effect that living within the music industry and success can have on one as well. And actually, what we saw was a very lonely woman, and ill, very ill, like desperately pleading with people. And there was something that she'd said, I can't remember, I'm totally paraphrasing, but I have this myself, and I could completely relate to loads of things that she was saying, where, what was it? She was basically saying whenever she expresses an opinion on something, a lot of people around her, knowing that she has a certain mental illness, will just say that's the illness and almost don't let her have an opinion. And that's a problem I've had for years, is that people will say, oh no, that's not a valid response. That's you being crazy. And it's really awful to see, but especially with Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
And
Chester Bennington.
Exactly. And also we're seeing now Sinead O'Connor. Kanye West as well had an online and a public breakdown.
Do you not feel that we've like kind of almost, I don't know how to turn celebrities into such entertainment fodder, and we love the drama so much that when Kanye West has a public breakdown, it just becomes entertainment. It's there's very few people in that dialogue saying, whoa, he's obviously not right. And if it was any illness other than mental illness, people's approach would be so different.
I wonder if he had said, like Sinead O'Connor in her video that we watched today, I wonder if he'd been open and honest and said, I'm not well and I'm suffering.
But then why does he need to give people that?
He doesn't need to, but it's a really difficult thing to... I mean, I've seen lots of people have, friends as well when I'm on Facebook and stuff, and I've seen lots of friends have these kind of... It looks like they're having a mental breakdown in statuses that I'm watching them post, and I'm like, whoa, we need to intervene and just say, hey, are you all right? But Kanye West obviously did it on a much larger scale.
Yeah.
And then
but
people
have you
love
ever
it,
worked in like a shitty office? Have you ever worked in like done like... No,
I've
you
never,
never worked. So when
I've
it's when you
never
go
had to
into
do
like
it.
the photocopier room and they've got one of those like Britney memes on the wall, and it's like Britney when she went through that shave my head attack a photographer. And I swear it's in like every shitty office you go into, they have it there, and it's like,
why?
if you think you're having a bad day, at least you're not Britney in 2014, or when was it, 2011, I can't even remember.
Way before then.
2009?
I think it was like 2009, Big Britney
Yeah,
fan.
yeah. And it's just like, it's not... If Britney Spears survived 2007, you can make it through today.
Oh,
Thank you, Producer Paul. That is in literally 90% of shitty offices in the UK. Swear to God.
I haven't got a response to that, because
But that's just how we just turn it. We just make mental health issues and celebrities into entertainment, because that's what the press does, right? You have a big star, and then you find any way to knock them down.
Which is disgusting. That's if something's going to be crazy, that's crazy. Wow, poor Britney. I mean, I remember when I was watching the Britney Spears, her mental episode. When I was watching it,
God, I really
it
for a
was
second
awful.
then hoped you were going to say road trip though, but carry on.
I would like to watch a Britney Spears.
Sorry,
movie.
Crossroads. That's what it's called. Crossroads.
Crossroads.
Britney Spears movie.
Well, I did see that as well, because she's a class act.
So good.
But it was, he was this kind of squeaky clean America's sweetheart, and all of a sudden you see her shaving her own head, and it was harrowing for me to see. And I mean that's what, 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
So I mean, I was a baby then, looking at that and thinking this isn't right, and it's exploitative. And the same with images of Amy Winehouse, completely exploitative. I was at this conference at the weekend just past in Hull, and chatting about music and mental health. And there was all this dialogue going on about and I think actually the conversation got a bit too broad about mental health in itself, which is vast, like we can't cover that in 1 hour. But regarding music and mental health, I was just saying, like, with Amy Winehouse and Britney Spears, let's just take two examples. Actually, it's a responsibility of the management company and the record label. They have a responsibility themselves to look after their artists and to nurture them. And lots of them don't. And I've started to be a lot more vocal with my management company, because when I met up with you in January, it was at a point where I wouldn't answer my phone. I wasn't replying to any emails, having total breakdowns all the time. And then I had to and they saw how thin I'd gotten as well. And I had to speak to them and say, actually, I'm not very well. And as soon as I'd said that, they started implementing little things. Okay, if you're not well and you're feeling this terribly, how can we make this a healthier environment for you to exist in? And that doesn't apply to just musicians, does it?
No, but I feel like I've been on panels before about this, and I kind of feel like it's so difficult to find who is responsible.
Yeah.
Because you can say it's the manager's responsibility, but then
I don't think it's solely.
But then a lot of like managers you'll be people that have just come up through the music industry doing different jobs, and you've found an artist, or you've got along with an artist, and a lot of it is just knowing music and knowing how to do good admin and knowing the right people. And no one as a manager, it is something that a lot of people fall into. You don't really go... I mean, there are music business courses out there, but not a lot of people I know who are managers have been on them. It's something that they were doing PR, or they were, working in a venue, or they were playing in other bands, and they found this one artist and they've built them up, and it's not something that you train for. And so at what point do you train to understand how to deal with someone who has a mental health issue?
I don't even think it's a training thing.
You need to have a professional understanding to be able to truly help someone, surely.
I don't even think it's a training thing. I mean, in regards to managers or a close friend or a partner, I don't think it's a training thing. I think it's having the empathy there, which is, okay, you're a sounding board. You're going to listen to this artist because your team around you, they become like your family. So my tour manager when I'm on tour is my mum or my dad.
Yeah.
And my musicians in the band are brothers and sisters. And it's like long tours, small vans. And so you can't hide anything. Like shit don't go unseen on tour because you're in such close proximity of each other. And it's the same with your management company. Like you're in each other's pockets and in each other's lives all the time. Even if it is just you're all able to say to them, you know, when I come off stage, I get, and this is a problem that I have, get such high adrenaline peak. I don't know what to do with it. I mean, my boyfriend sat in the room now and he's seen when I came off stage once, and this is like a few months ago when I came off stage in Bristol or Norwich, and then loads of people in the audience. I was thrown into interviews and stuff like that.
And you're at the merch table, or you're signing, or you're doing
photos. You go
photos.
straight to your merch table. You need to sell merch, or you just got to chat to people. Oh, can you come and say hello to the organizer and da 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 da. And so you actually haven't had any time for this adrenaline to dispel, and it's kind of still there. I got in the kind of porta cabin thing that we had backstage and just was like, Tom, lock the door. And I just burst out crying, like hid under a table on the floor. And it's just, and I think that's a thing that I'm starting to learn how to cope with. At first I thought, is this my mental illness? And it might be an aspect of it, but there's certain things like with adrenaline, there's just a healthy way to cope with it. Like take 10 minutes after you've come off stage to wind down calmly with your band. And these are things that I think that I've spoken to my management company about now. And it's like, okay, they can't put interviews in after a gig. I'll do them before a show, but after a show, you know what, let me have a glass of wine with my band or something.
Booked to do it after a show.
Loads. I've had to do them loads. Yeah, photo shoots and interviews, and by that time I'm half cut anyway.
Photo shoots, and you just go and you're all sweaty and
sweaty,
and puffy and
pissed.
Lipstick everywhere.
Oh, I don't wear lipstick because that would just be a mess. But yeah, there's all that as well. And it was, there's a little tricks though, isn't there? Like what I was talking about last time we met up, it was like I am learning slowly, and at that point I was beginning to undertake some of these steps, but like to curate the environment that I exist within, to go like, okay, I know that like at that point actually I wasn't using, when we last spoke, I wasn't using social media at all.
Yeah.
And that made a massive difference actually. I felt a lot better because of it. I've started using it again, and then little certain niggling things have started to come back again. And that's what it is with especially with my mental illness, and I know with lots of my friends or people that I've met, it's not a thing that's ever going to go away, which is kind of what I'm coming to terms with. It's going to be a thing which is very present, probably until I croak it. But it's just ways of managing it, recognising it, that it's how I can exist. So even my boyfriend, it was a very frank discussion. So we met, 3 months ago. And I had a very frank discussion from the beginning and saying like, I don't know what I got. I've never had a name for it, but I have terrible anxiety, paranoia, jealousy. I lie, I'll hide away, I'm a recluse, and there's all these things, and he's going, yeah, I'm still in. Like, wow, who's the crazy one, me or you? I think like, so my boyfriend is constantly saying things like, I'm kind of like a rescue puppy. You know, you just got to be like, just very aware of what triggers me, and he's very, very patient with us. And I'm very lucky to have a management company and a friend circle who are very similar as well. Like, they give me the benefit of the doubt a lot, and they're very understanding of like my mood swings and stuff like that. But I think that's kind of any advice I'd give to anybody is being, I felt like I've had a weight lifted off my shoulders. And it's almost like going, I'm an alcoholic. But you're not though, you're just ill. But you feel like you're making some kind of an admission, which is like a dirty secret. And it's not. You're just ill. It's not a bloody dirty secret. This is the thing.
If it were anything other than mental illness, it would be treated so differently, right? Mm-hmm. If you had a physical ailment or some kind of virus, people would treat you so differently. But
or Lyme disease.
Illness or Lyme disease, as we were discussing over dinner, which was wonderful.
Sorry, I want to bring every conversation back to Martine McCutcheon because I'm obsessed.
It's fine. I mean, afterwards we can watch Love Actually and eat some ice cream.
Please promise me this will happen.
but
you're right.
But yeah, it's just and also you were saying last time about how you'd gone to a doctor, and even the doctor had treated it as if it were like, you're just being silly, you pretty little girl.
It was awful.
Insane that I still can't believe that even happened. Like a trained medical professional would still trivialise something like mental health.
It was disgusting, yeah, I forgot I told you that story. So yeah, I'd gone to my GP because my ex-boyfriend was like, you're a crazy person. I used to hate it but I still hate it. If anyone calls me crazy, well, that's going to bring out the crazy, but I really hate that term. I think it's very derogative. And so I did actually, the best thing about that relationship was that it brought out the darkest points of my mental illness. It really highlighted all of that. So I'm actually very grateful for that relationship and think he's a great person for kind of pointing these things out, and I'm very grateful actually. But I ended up going to my GP about it rather than seeking. I kept going to like alternative therapies, loads of alternative therapies. So I took up yoga.
Why do you think?
Because Instagram told me that it was dead good for me. So I went to yoga and I just wanted to kick the shit out of everybody. I left there and I wanted to just punch stuff. I was like, I can't touch my toes, and she is lush and she's showing. I'm going to punch her.
Oh my God,
yoga made me a very angry person.
I've never heard of anyone leave yoga more stressed.
Oh no, I wanted to beat up and smash inanimate objects. Like, I've lost a lot of friends to yoga. I'm like, are you going to come out tonight? Oh, I can't. I'm working on my Zen and I'm not actually drinking. And actually, I'm like saving money for India. And I'm like, all right, fuck off. I'm going to be in Wetherspoons. If you want to come, you come. If you don't, you don't. But, and then I went to yoga and I hated it. I really hated it. I hated the hushed tones. I hated the fact that I couldn't touch my toes. And I had to clench my front area to make sure I didn't.
That?
Well, I just had to make sure that no air escaped.
Sometimes they just do that. They make you just tense up your bunions or something. They're called bungers. That's like a restaurant, isn't it?
I went to one yoga class with my mother once, and it was just like watching my mother acting out the Kama Sutra, and I was like, I didn't want to see this. So yoga's not for me, but I did try a lot of alternative therapies. I even at one point, I bought loads of crystals. And I had somebody had somebody bless my crystals and energize them. And I tried so many different alternative types of therapy. Acupuncture made me feel a bit better, actually, for a little bit. I felt a lot less stressed for 3 days. And then I thought, okay, I need to go down the proper medical route. So I'm going to go to my GP and let's go and chat. And yeah, I was disgusted in their response. I told them, they had this kind of give me an A4 sheet of paper, which had on it like all these different questions of like, say a day to day, would you say, and if, do you ever have suicidal thoughts? And if they're often, you'll write 10, and if they're not often, you'll write 1. And at that point, I wrote 10. And all these things are quite alarming. And I was like, I want to kill myself most days. 10. Do you feel isolated? Yeah, I'm by myself most of the time. 10. And alarm bells would, with any other doctor, and I hope any other doctor, I hope this was one specific case, but I would hope that anybody else would say, okay, we need to source you some help and you need it now. And the doctor looked at this sheet of A4 paper and said to me, listen, you're a pretty girl. I think you just, you need to go on holiday. And I was so shocked at his response, I didn't really know what to say. And then he went on to ask me things like, have you got a boyfriend? And I'd said, no. He's like, oh, we know you're a pretty girl. I mean, you should have, maybe you need a boyfriend. I mean, you're in your 30s, a boyfriend and a holiday. And then I kind of, but I was in such a bad way at the time I left. I think a bit of me was also very, I was quite pleased that he said I was pretty. It was quite nice. So I kind of left there going, well, I know I'm fit. But I'd left there and I felt, okay, actually, maybe the way that I feel about, maybe the way I'm feeling at the minute is futile or frivolous. I think it's frivolous. He made me feel like my problems were much
already takes so
smaller.
It takes so much to go and make that appointment and have that conversation to start with, to then be told that you're being silly. It's the worst. That's awful.
It was awful because it took a lot for me to go there.
Yeah.
And then after that, I felt stupid. I felt humiliated. And then after that, I felt really angry at the system, and so I refused to go to any doctors again until a point where actually after we had our last interview, there was a point where I wanted to take my own life again, and luckily my housemate found me, and I was in a really bad way, and she took me to A&E that day and was like, I just need to put you somewhere, I don't know what to do with you. And my poor housemate, she's amazing, but it's such a responsibility on the loved ones around me as well, whether it be a partner or it be a best friend. I mean, my best friend, it must mentally affect her as well to see her friend going through this. And she didn't know. She either takes me to the police station or she takes me to hospital, and she took me to hospital. And they started making small steps with me there. And that was a real turning point for me. And that was about 5 months ago. Okay. Which is, I think it's the thing I'm coming to terms with now. It's going to be constant. And there's going to be times over the next... Let's hope for, I'm 31 now, let's hope for 40 more minimum. And there's going to be times over the next 40 years where I'm going to have 4 days where it feels like the darkest ever. And I'm like, there's no getting past this. But I just know with hindsight, I do. Yeah. I do get past them. They're awful, but...
just talking to you now is so different to our last podcast. I'm like, okay. Yeah, okay. But I just thought we were just having it sounds really bad to say, I thought we were having a laugh.
Well, I kind of was. It was a welcome distraction.
Like, this is not what I was expecting. I thought it would be a much more intense conversation. And then you were like, lol. And I was like, all right, lol.
But I think that is like, especially for me, whether it be like you're talking about mental health or...
talked about how whenever we feel like pressured in situations where we're like showing too much of ourselves, we just crack a joke. It's like a defense mechanism. You're just like
fart.
Yeah, or you're like just you go kidding. Ah!
Oh, I think I'm going to kill myself. Just kidding.
Jokes.
But I think there's still a bit of...
And at not one point did I think, maybe Nadine's not okay actually. Maybe we should...
I did a good job.
But I feel terrible actually.
You shouldn't feel terrible at all. Like I'm very me and myself. Oh my gosh, me and my split personality. Me and some of the close friends of mine and people that I've spoken to with a similar illness which has no name or it has many names. You do learn to become quite a good liar. Yeah. Because I also have an eating disorder as well, which is related to my mental health illness, and I'm also bulimic. I haven't been, it's not so present for the past few months, it hasn't been very present. That's why I'm saying to you that I've also put about a stone in weight on. And especially with bulimia, you become a very good liar. You have to make excuses all the time. Yeah. Well, luckily I smoke, so that would kind of disguise certain kind of sicky smells, I suppose, acidic smells. But I was carrying perfume. But you come up with lies. So I started telling people I'm lactose intolerant. And actually when I ate that pizza, it was the cheese. I forgot that I'm not. You come up with these ridiculous lies and you become very convincing. And I'm so sorry that you said you feel terrible about the last time. You shouldn't. It's just one of these things, isn't it? Are you sure?
But I'm just apologising to you, really, because I felt like we had such a frank discussion. At not one point did I go, oh, actually, maybe that one. I even said at the end it was frivolous, and maybe I shouldn't have thought perhaps there's a reason why it was.
I think there's an element of like. When I go and talk to like students and stuff about mental health stuff, I do inject a lot of humour into it because I want them to listen. And also I think that when you do inject humour into like very serious subjects, it relaxes people a little bit. A lot of people just don't want to talk about mental health illnesses because they're scared of them. Yeah. They don't understand them. And so if you do put some humour in there, it's like, I will still make jokes about it. I think my boyfriend's starting to find some of it a little bit funny, where I'm like, my little gremlin's coming out, and I'm seeing crazy. I'm going to go crazy on you. But it helps me discuss a lot of my mental illness by injecting a bit of humour there. But I think the last time...
And your personality, you're not that serious. You know,
No,
you've got
not
a fun,
really.
you've got a humorous personality. You're self-deprecating.
Mate, like my new album's about like the refugee crisis, and I find it very difficult not to make jokes in between songs. And when I'm discussing my mental health illness, I find it very difficult again not to make. But I know that, you know,
But
if
also,
there's
it's that
one
fear
person
of being
listening,
too serious, that fear of being
Exactly.
too real.
I ain't that guy. But you know, but if there is one person listening who has the same illness, or you know, suffers from mental health illnesses, and they need a bit of good advice or something, that's what I was upset about when I listened to the last podcast. I was like, it was too playful and I was too jovial with the whole thing. And actually, it is a serious subject, and it does piss me off continuously that we're still having to like that. I mean, I'm still having to now at 31 having to, you know, shake a. I'm not literally shaking a GP, but getting them and going like, I'm ill. But with GPs, I think they genuinely want me to go in there, banging like a frying pan on my head to be like, I'm a crazy person, help me. But when I go in and I'm dressed well and I'm presented well and I'm speaking calmly and eloquently, again, I'll get that response like I did at the last time at GP. Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
But you said last time about writing things down before you go in, so you don't get in and have that nervous panic and go, everything's all right.
Yeah, so that's what I did.
I thought that was really interesting.
Well, that's what I started to do. I started to, because I knew that when I get in there that I'm going to make jokes.
Yeah.
It's like a defense mechanism almost, or like a tick. I can't help it. So yeah, I started writing down things that when I get into an office with a GP or a therapist or a mental health nurse, I can just say to them, okay, like ha 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 and all this, but actually here's this piece of paper, and that's what I felt this past week. Paranoia, can't sleep, suicidal thoughts, bulimia is still very high, I'm not feeling very well, don't want to leave the house. Like quite harrowing things, you know, they're not so great. But it did help me actually doing that.
Yeah.
Just giving this piece of paper over going, oh, there's the real thing.
Mm. I suppose it must be tough for you as well, because you were such an ambassador for mental health at the kind of start of your career. You were sort of like quite outspoken about it all.
Yeah.
And your first album was about two friends that you lost because they'd taken their own lives.
Yeah.
And I suppose then you kind of got everyone else coming to you with their problems, and you're like secretly like.
I felt like, who's a really famous agony aunt?
Oh.
Well, I felt like him or her.
What's the one that's in like? What's the name of the one that's in like the news? It's like a newspaper, like Deirdre.
There
you go.
Deirdre. Well, I felt like Deirdre. People were sending me in emails all the time, and it was like, oh. And a bit of me was a bit like, not just Deirdre, but this kind of messiah complex for a little bit as well, where I was like, I'm the saviour, I wrote the songs about the mental health illnesses, and now you come to me for the advice. And I was dishing some out. Sometimes you should do this, and you should, you know what I think. And then I realised that it came to a point where I was like, whoa. You all need to see medical professionals.
Yeah.
At the time, I'm a 22-year-old idiot. Don't get advice from me. And so I did intern with Samaritans for a while, just to learn more about the process. And handling that process, but still, even at Samaritans, they're not medically trained. They're a very, very kind, empathetic voice at the end of the phone. And so if someone is at a point where they think that's it, it's a last port of call, really. It's a kind, beautiful
Did you work
voice.
on the phone lines there?
Yeah, very briefly, yeah. Wow. And it was amazing. I loved it. Actually, I met some really great people. But I was very aware of the fact that none of us were medically trained. Mm. And I think actually that's one thing.
What training do you have to do that sort of stuff?
It's basic training in that you do lots of trial phone calls, kind of script role play type stuff. And then in a medical aspect, there's really nothing. There is really nothing. And then actually the thing that really irritates me is that the NHS website that I went to in some of my darkest hours, and it would be, out of hours, you couldn't ring the NHS hotline. And then they would, on the website, they would then direct you to Samaritans. Now, this still to this day baffles me, and it's still present on their website. A medical institution directs you to people who are not medically trained.
That NHS Direct phone line, the Tories shut it down years ago.
Yeah,
and it's not medical. The 111 or whatever you phone, it's not actual medical professionals on the other end of the line. It was like 6 months ago or something, there was like a scandal in the newspapers where a lot of them had been photographed just asleep at the desks.
Oh, it's minging, isn't it? It's disgusting.
I used to actually love that actual NHS Direct phone line, which was proper nurses, because it would save you from having to go to A&E, because you would phone up and you'd be like, cut my finger. You'd be like, can you see anything white? And you're like, no. And they're like, stay strict.
It's your fault they closed it down. It was just Jen Long.
Every day.
I've got a paper cut and I think I'm going to die. It's just you clogging up the phone lines.
And it's like people with serious mental
health illnesses, and there's Jen Long being like,
it's some white stuff coming out of it and it smells like cheese. And
they're like, you just shaved your legs and used a cheap razor.
You need to go to the doctor. Sorry.
Some white stuff and it smells like cheese.
That happened.
Oh, you're my favourite minger. I can talk about my piles next.
No, please don't.
Okay. They're internal, not external. So, we could don't know what they're like. But yes, aside from piles, which actually, I'm happier. Honestly, this is a weird thing. I'm more comfortable talking about my internal piles in my rectum than I am talking about my mental health illness. I will happily sit here and talk to you about how, I had to change my diet and I had to put more, bran or whatever it is in it.
And again, please don't. But why do you think that is? Because, it feels like mental health in recent years has just been such a kind of hot topic of conversation. Yeah. And, there's been so many documentaries about it, so many news stories, especially within music, so many musicians standing up and saying...
Green.
Really?
Professor Green was a great one, because he's a young man who's in urban music world, and he was speaking about it. There's all these connotations of, if you're like the urban music world, you've got to be very masculine and adhere to all these things. And he came out into this great documentary about it. But just like you're saying, there's so much more information on it, and it's being advertised much more in the industry.
And it's in public discourse, yet it still feels like something that you can't just blurt out in the office. You can't sit in the office and be like, oh God, I'm feeling somewhat suicidal today.
Yeah.
But you can say oh God, I ate a really weird curry last night and I think I've got the shits.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's just, that's strange, because realistically having the shits should be more embarrassing.
Yeah, Tandoori Whispers. I learned the phrase Tandoori Whispers this morning.
Stop trying to talk about it though.
I'm sorry, but it was just featured. I love the Viz, and it was featured in the Viz, and it's those little silent, those SBDs, those silent but deadly pumps. Anyway. But no, I am gonna be serious, I promise. But is it okay? When Professor Green came out in that documentary, I was so chuffed when it came out, because especially I've been working with Calm a bit and some other mental health charities, and my friends who took their own lives were there's actually 3, and they're all young men of a certain age, super talented, all bloody gorgeous, and they were the people that actually nobody would have ever expected it to be them, because one was the most talented artist and gorgeous, and one was so funny and outgoing and extrovert, and people were very surprised that they had taken their own lives. But I've been surrounded by a lot of, especially young males, who have had terrible mental health illnesses. And Grace and Perry made these great bunch of docs about masculinity and a lot of responsibility for, I guess as a woman, as a woman, I have a lot of responsibility as well. I'm 31 and I'm being told I need to get married, I need to have a baby. Yeah. And I'm like, well, actually I want to adopt. And people turn their faces when I say that, or maybe I don't want to get married, or but men have just as much, and I'm seeing so many young men in a position where they feel totally desperate. But like you were saying, why don't people discuss it? I think with a lot of young men, it's because to them, you know, they're going to get things like, they're going to say that they're feeling ill and then get someone going, you know what, just, you know, man up, grow a pair. Man up and grow a pair. You bugger off if you tell someone to man up and grow a pair. It's just disgusting. But that's one of the reasons people still don't discuss it. And it's all very well. I think it was a big step forward, Professor Green doing that. And I think it would have... And there was also the footballer, Rio Ferdinand, is that his name?
Yeah.
I do like football. Rio Ferdinand, he lost it. Yeah, I love football. He lost his wife and he was talking about his grieving process. Here are two, you know, here's a football icon and an urban musician. They're both talking about mental illness in the public sphere so openly. That's amazing.
No,
that's making a lot of progress.
There is definitely progress being made, but it still does feel taboo.
Yeah, which is why we're doing this podcast, why we all need to keep talking about it. Sinead O'Connor, that's just happened, and you know, I didn't bother going on like Twitter and see what people are saying about it. I just hope that there's, my friends within my little echo chamber were just sending loads of love to her. And I hope it does, I hope some good comes from that. I hope people start saying, okay, well, what position is she in? Why is she ill? Who isn't helping her? Who else do we know who might be going through this? I think it's an open dialogue. And one thing that surprised me bloody loads is actually like, people in general are lovely. Yeah. Like, really understanding. I would say 97% of people are mint. There's 3% that are total pricks. Just total pricks. There's a 3%. And sometimes the 3%, they're the ones that shout the loudest. They're the little keyboard warriors who are sat there, you know, I don't know, masturbating in their own bedrooms.
You mentioned social media a few times, and I think that obviously, I mean, everyone knows that it's so detrimental sometimes to your mental state. Yeah. And everyone knows that what you put online isn't reality. Yeah, everyone falls victim to it.
Yeah, but we say everyone knows, but I mean, I know I do know, you're right, everyone does know, but I mean, I'm back on Instagram now. Just because
someone's Instagram is full of them smiling and happy and having a great time doesn't mean they're not, you know, just sat alone feeling a little bit sad or worthless on a Friday night.
Exactly. One of the things I find really weird is like someone's on holiday and it's like they've just gone on holiday to liven up their Instagram account. Yeah. Because it's like, I'm having a great time and I'm doing some... They're not present in the moment. You're spending your whole bloody holiday just Instagramming what you're doing. You're not present. Which actually means that you and your partner are actually, on a night time, you're sat there just documenting your day in bed rather than being out in a restaurant, looking at stuff or chatting to each other. But I mean, I'm still affected by those things when I'm back on Instagram now and I'm looking at stuff like, I need to look like that. Oh, what's he got in his house? I want that. Or what? But I'm very aware of when I was really ill, when I'd go on Instagram and I'd feel terrible. Very aware of how it made me feel. So I don't brag on the internet now. I don't go, I'm in a new relationship and I'm really happy. Because also knowing me, it probably won't last more than a year. But I'm joking. He's gone for a cigarette. But I just don't want to be that person. I'm not that sorry. But I don't want to be that person who just broadcasts your great news or every day. Like, I did this and you're bragging. Yeah. Because I know what it's like to be in the receiving end. So if something good happens, I'm sure people will hear about it, but I don't need to broadcast it and shove it down people's throats.
It's such a strange extra dimension for us to have to comprehend, and our brains are only capable of doing so much understanding of this strange modern world that I feel like you throw that extra force in, and it's I don't think it's surprising that more people are, maybe more people aren't suffering with mental health illnesses. Maybe just more people are being open about it and talking about it. But it certainly seems like 15 years ago, like this wasn't something that happened that people really talked about that much.
Yeah. Well, I think, like you say, I think there's like an element of that. It was definitely present, but people weren't talking about it. Yeah. But I think now there's more because of this. I do think social media is very bloody dangerous. Some people use it really well, and then they're fine.
I think you just have to have a separation and understand like this is public, but this is, and then it's
Oish.
It's an addiction as well.
Look at like statistics with it. I think Instagram's the worst one. The worst one.
Really?
Yeah, and I see my little nieces on it, and I take them out to the theatre. I'm trying to do something with them, and they're all Instagram, and I'm like, give me your phones, and they're like, Auntie Nadine's meant to be the cool rock star auntie. She's a bitch and she's boring. She confiscates our phones. I'm like, let's all talk and have a conversation. They're like, give me my phone. I want to Instagram with this. And they're not present, but they're. I'm so glad that wasn't around when I was super young. Imagine the cyberbullying and the rest of it. I mean, I would have been a bully actually. I would have been one of those arseholes.
Would you?
Yeah, I would. I was awful. I was an awful kid. Could be.
What do you think that's because you weren't okay yourself?
Yeah, I don't think I was very well from a very young age, and it's something that I'm coming to terms with now. I mean, we were going to originally do the podcast at Strong Rooms, but I have beef with someone who works there because I have days which are up and down, and my jealousy or paranoia and anger, I can lash out sometimes at people, and it's disgusting, but it feels like a different person. And then I'm humiliated.
I suppose we all have that side of us though, where you kind of feel yourself going down your little dark hole, and you're like, don't get in a mood, and then you're just, I mean, probably not as bad for me as
I'm so jealous of you, and jealousy is a big thing, but I wish that I had that voice that goes, it's like a voice of reason that
no, but you still ignore
don't
it.
do that.
You still ignore it, obviously.
Yeah, but sometimes you have that voice that goes, yeah, you know what, I feel this right now, but that's fucking ridiculous. Like, let's just get over it. Exactly. Whereas mine goes, my mind's my worst enemy a lot of the time. It's like a little devil who's sat there, and he goes like, I'm going to say he, so, or she, but most likely he, is sat in the back of my head, and there's a grain of a thought which is ridiculous, right? It's a ridiculous thought that I've made up, like, who is that person talking to my boyfriend, or are they more and then the little devil goes, they are more talented, or he is talking to that girl and she is and exaggerates it, and it's awful, and I can't quiet it down. So I have to verbalize it and say to a friend or say to a partner, I'm having this thought. And my boyfriend's little trick that he uses, he just uses humour a lot. So just takes the mick out of this little voice and goes, what's it doing? That's ridiculous, because I love you. That's ridiculous. And like does a little dance or something to make me laugh. And it works actually. You know, sometimes. A lot of the time it works, but they're just coping mechanisms, isn't there? But I wish I had what you have.
Well, you sounds like you do to a certain extent. So you're going to hate it when I say it, but I just go to yoga.
You what?
I just go to yoga.
Oh, farting weirdo.
So I do not queef.
You do.
Excuse me, I do not.
Queen Laquifa.
My friend did actually queef in a yoga class when she was doing the shoulder stand.
Of course she did.
Yeah.
Oh, she can do the shoulder stand.
She can do yeah.
Oh, she deserves a queef. Yeah. Can you do the shoulder stand?
Oh God, no. I did actually manage to do a headstand the other day. That I was very proud of myself. But it does because I have to concentrate so hard on what's going on and the breathing and all that stuff that I just completely forget what I was even stressing over before I went in, and then by the end I'm like, oh, done.
Do you think is that exercise in general?
Maybe
is that specifically like?
I think it might be exercise. It might be the endorphins.
But yoga, it's meant to really calm you. There was like clearing your mind. Do you do the meditation before and after, or
you something? You lie down and you do some exercise, and then you lie down again, and then you might do an om.
Oh, I just.
Go give it another shot.
I am. I'm gonna give it another shot, because I do quite like this idea of just quieting.
Come with me, because I like a yoga class that doesn't take itself too seriously. Good,
because all the ones that I've been to have been way too serious, and that's the problem. I'm like, come on, we all know this downward dog hour. This is ridiculous. It's just silly.
No, you gotta find a good teacher. I'll take you to class.
You're right. Okay, well,
we'll go together.
Maybe the next podcast will be about me and yoga.
Oh my God,
and clean eating. 8
months time.
We'll do
one on yoga and queefing.
I've come back from India and I'm now teaching yoga, like Ashtanga or transcendental meditation.
I don't think you're going to be doing Ashtanga yoga in 8 months' time.
Well, you just wait and see.
All right, that's a challenge.
That sounds like a challenge. See, if you make it a challenge for me, I'm going to be like, I'm a shower.
Right. laid it down.
All right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be yoga master.
I feel like we should wrap it up with some kind of like advice or...
Oh shit, I haven't got
I
yoga.
think you've already given some pretty good advice throughout, however.
Do yoga.
I feel like this podcast is also going to be punctuated by Paul Bridgewater's constant sniffs. Should we just explain? Should we just explain that you have a sniffy over here?
Well, also because Paul is sniffing whole way through.
Yeah.
You can have a little blow just to
Go
be proof.
on.
You don't have to come out with a full blow. It's
He's not snotty enough for a full blow. Just for a pathetic sniffle in the corner.
Well, it sounds like, it could also, if people can hear Paul sniffing in the background, it's that my story is so heartwarming and so touching that Paul was just so moved by it.
Moved the man to tears.
But that's not. But I've got a really cute cat.
Song. You have got a gorgeous cat.
Really cute cat called Rodney, and he's a Scottish fold. So he's got. Me and Taylor Swift have the same kind of cat. But his little daft ears that go. He has everything a cat. He doesn't have anything a cat needs to be a proper cat. So he has a short tail, ears that kind of close over, and so he has lack of balance, and he's a bit rubbish like that. But I love him. I wouldn't recommend anybody else gets one because they're bred cats and they're not well. But I love him and he's mint. And I got him actually because I spend so much time by myself writing, and my anxiety was so bad. He calms me right down.
No, but I think having an animal in your life it's actually good for your mental well-being. Like,
yeah.
I listened to an amazing podcast the other day called Reply All, which we've talked about on this podcast before with Dan from Bastille, who's also a big fan.
Obsessed with podcasts.
He's obsessed with podcasts.
Go on.
And they did this podcast about this guy who started this thing at these old people's homes in the US where he filled them with animals. And all these old people who were living there who just used to sort of sit and stare at the telly all day, suddenly they got this new lease of life.
Amazing.
Because they were like surrounded by all these animals, and you can't really predict what an animal's going to do. There's this, you have to sort of be a bit more with it, don't you? And also you've got someone else to think about.
Yeah,
in that sense.
That's exactly, for me, it's like I get very selfish.
Yeah. And
I feel the love for this little fella is completely selfless.
Yeah.
And it's an emotion I've never had before, whether it's a byproduct of my anxiety or whatever it is that I have is jealousy and paranoia. And so it's competitive nature and it's awful. But with Rodney, my little, it's pure love, and I would jump in front of a bus for him. I won't.
He's done.
But I won't. But I would do anything for this little fella, and it's the responsibility, the routine. I love him, but it's actually the companionship. He really calms me down, so I'm having moments of like proper anxiety where it's heart palpitations and the rest of it. This little fella really calms me down. That's the reason I got Rodney, but he's the best little companion I've ever had. I love him. I'm a soppy, but I'm meant to be a cool goth rock kind of thing, but
I'm
cats.
supposed to be an indie wild child, but now I just spend every night at home with Pancake.
With Pancake.
I know. I just sit down on the sofa.
Rodney.
We put the telly on, she comes and sits next to me and we just have a
Pancake's
little
a female.
chat.
Has she been spayed?
Yes.
Oh,
of course.
Oh, actually, no, Rodney had the
What,
chop.
were you going to try and mate them?
I was going to try and mate them. I
Can't
know,
believe
but
you're trying to set Pancake up.
But it's nice, animals need to get their end away as well.
Oh, no, I think she's just happy with me. She's just happy with me.
All right, well, that's what you think. But cats are class.
Yeah,
Get a cat, because they're mint, unless you're Paul, and you'll have constant sinus problems.
Get a dog.
Get a dog. Or a goldfish pet. You get a goldfish. I'm allergic also. It'll be fine. Sorry.
Don't let the water touch my skin.
I think you should probably end the podcast on a blow.
Yes, do it!
on.
Go on!
Go on, let it rip.
With your right tissue.
Just let it rip.
Oh!
Satisfying.
A big thank you to Nadine. You've been listening to Talk the Line. I'm Jen Long. You can find out more information about the Samaritans at samaritans.org and about Calm at thecalmzone.net. This podcast was produced by Paul Bridgewater. Original music is by Seams. Subscribe for more podcasts. There is a new episode every Friday. You can follow us at Talk the Line, and if you like us, please leave us a review. If you don't like us, don't leave us a review. That's not helpful. See you next week.